Hello and welcome to today's National 8A webinar. I'm Melissa Sawes, the Executive Director of the National 8A Association. We are a nonprofit with a mission to provide education and guidance for all aspiring, current, and graduate 8As. We are also proud to work with minority small businesses, HubZone, veteran-owned, women-owned JVs, agencies, large primes, and industry professionals. Before we begin, I would like to note that this webinar is being recorded and all presentation materials will be posted on our website. If you'd like to ask a question, please use the chat box and select everyone or email us at events@national8aassociation.org. Today's session will be on doing business with the Department of Transportation, presented by Natalie Rosa, a small business specialist at DOT. She's an 8A and HubZone programs advocate at the OSDBU in the Procurement Assistance Division. And in this capacity, she serves to help small business owners to market their products and services and increase the participation of small businesses in DOT procurement opportunities. So without further ado, I'll pass over the mic to Natalie to begin today's webinar.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Hi, everyone. As she mentioned, my name is Natalie Rosa, and I am the 8A and HubZone advocate for the U.S. Department of Transportation OSDBU office. So a little bit about our OSDBU's mission. If you could go to the next slide, thank you. So the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, other known as OSDBU's mission, is to ensure small business policies and goals of the Secretary of Transportation. We are under the Office of the Secretary, so we are directly connected to the Office of the Secretary, discussing technical assistance initiatives, different things that we're trying to do for small business, and just really trying to be more efficient and effective in our assisting small businesses as a whole. Next slide. Next slide. Perfect. So the federal government, as you guys probably know, if you're new to federal government contracting, then welcome. But the federal government actually purchases everything, and US DOT is not an exception to that rule. So across the entire federal government, there are mandates as far as, and there is a mandate for any agency that follows the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulations, to contract at a minimum of 23% small business. Now, there was a push to make the percentage for 8A and SDB larger, and we've been trying to do it for many years, and finally they already raised it to 11%. But just because it's 11% for all of the federal agencies, it doesn't mean that that is the maximum that they can do. That's just the minimum of their mandate. If you can move over to the next slide. As you can see here, at USDOT, we've done an average about 32 to 34%. Last year, or fiscal year 2020, we did about 34% and 19.31% with SDBs directly. I'm not going to be really touching upon WOSB or HubZone or anything like that, just because we are working with 8A firms, but if you are under those other socioeconomic categories, please make sure that you guys are reviewing the PowerPoint, which will be provided to you guys. And if it doesn't, if you guys need copies of it for whatever reason, feel free to email me. My email address will be in the PowerPoint as well. So if you want to jot that down when I get to it, you can. So keep in mind, you see this is FY 2020. It's 19.31%. So if an agency is working with, larger percentages, not those 5, 5, 3, and 3, or now 5, 11, 3, and 3, they actually, their mandate goes up. So if you see on the next slide, our mandate for SDB went up to 20%. So this year, FY 2022, we are at 20%. We're almost at, well, yeah, we are at almost, we're already halfway through the fiscal year. So we need to make that goal. If we don't meet that goal, then we lose the funding to a different organization. So we're very, very adamant about doing business with 8As and SDVs, period. Small business owners are huge. There's a huge push. As you can see, it's 34% with USDOT. We do with small businesses and contracting. We also have many grants that we have pushing forward through U.S. Department of Transportation. And as we move forward with the bill, which I'm going to touch upon later on, make sure that you guys are looking out into our source of thought notices. Make sure that you guys are actively trying to pursue contracts with U.S. Department of Transportation. Over the next 5 years, there's going to be a huge influx, and that 20%, we need you guys to meet that 20%, the 3%, the 3%, and the 5% for women-owned. Next slide. So these are the top NAAQS codes. I'm not going to go into them pretty much. You can tell it's engineering. Obviously, there's a lot of road work. There's a lot of bridges, as you'll see in the further slides, the different operating administrations, or basically departments of U.S. Department of Transportation. The different operating administrations really cover these NAAQS codes. This is where it comes from. Engineering services really stems from the fact that we have so many contracts with different airports, as I mentioned, bridge work and things like that. And you can see all of these numbers are also on SAM as it's sourced in the corner. But if you are falling under any other NAAQS codes that are not on here, don't be discouraged. We are purchasing so much, and especially because of the infrastructure bills being passed, we really need access to a plethora of different NAAQS codes, not just these. A lot of niche industries are also trying to be procured currently. So if you think that maybe you're adjacent to engineering services or shipbuilding or something like that, but not exactly, please still reach out. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what you're providing, and also maybe educate you on moving forward, not only with the Office of the Secretary or USDOT, but maybe with our state and local DOTs as well. Next slide. So here's what I was talking about when it comes to grants and contracting. So USDOT, our budget is divided between direct contracts and grants. So direct contracts is awards by OAs, or operating administrations, as I mentioned earlier. So federal acquisition regulations, we follow the FAR, but FAA does not. So they have the acquisition management system. FAA is under U.S. Department of Transportation. In a later slide, you'll see how the pie of funding is divided. That's the reason we talk about FAA, because they actually procure the most out of U.S. Department of Transportation. And also, very, very huge are small business goals. I can't stress enough, especially under this administration, we are trying to push small business goaling more than ever. We also have grants. So those grants are usually distributed by the state DOTs, and at the state level, there's the transit authorities, the different airports, state and local acquisition regulations, and the DBE program. So one question that actually comes up a lot is if you need to be DBE certified in order to work with U.S. Department of Transportation, and you do not. Your DBE certification is essential for you working with the state and local Department of Transportation, okay? So make sure that DBE, anything that ends with business enterprise, for the most part, is on the state and local level. And then you have the other socioeconomic category certifications that we touched upon earlier that are regulated by the SBA. Next slide. So here, this is essential for anyone in the United States, so the majority of you. If you don't know who your SBTOC is, please make sure that you guys are getting a hold of them. There are 11 small business transportation resource centers located throughout the nation. On this slide, you can see where they're associated and situated throughout the United States. Please make sure that you locate your state and try to see where You are. These SBTRCs are here to help you. The same way that our procurement assistance division is here to help small business as far as federal contracting, these SBTRCs will help you on the state and local level. Don't get discouraged just because it's a different form of contracting. You want to try to get out there as much as possible. We need those DBEs. We need you guys to actually be part of our different programs as well. We have a bonding education program, access to capital program. WITI is actually one of my favorite programs that we push forward. It's Women in Transportation Internship Program, and those are administered by the SBTRCs as well. And if you are interested in getting your DBE or Disadvantaged Business Enterprise certification, they can assist you with that as well. Next slide. So here are the contact information for all the different SBTRCs. As I mentioned, if you're not in contact with your local SBTRC, make sure that you are reaching out. Here, they're very responsive. If for whatever reason they are not, just make sure that you're reaching out to myself or anyone from the PAD team too. Those contacts will be on a later slide, but just reach out. We're always trying to get a hold of you. Maybe they were on travel or something like that, and we'll connect you. Next slide. So I put this in here because this is essential for you guys to know about sources, sought notices, and opportunities with U.S. Department of Transportation. So when I talk about sources, sought notices, these obviously they're not traditional contracts. This is not a solicitation. The reason I mention them is because as 8As, this is an opportunity to market your services very, very differently than what's traditionally done. So if you see a source of sought notice that's under the $4 million threshold, that can go 8A direct award sole source, you should be reaching out to the programming office and the point of contact at that programming office mentioning, I'm ABC Consulting, let's say your company name. I'm ABC Consulting, I'm an 8A firm. I have the following capabilities that match an opportunity that you have out for sources sought notice. I was wondering if you were interested in going the 8A direct award sole source route. You could always ask, you could ask back and forth questions as long as it's not in solicitation form, and it's completely okay. So I labeled 4 of them there for you guys. If you want more detail as far as DOT or US DOT opportunities, the link is there too. Reach out. We really need you guys to reach out. We really need to make our goals and to exceed them. It's important that we assist our small businesses, not only because the goal is there, but because 92% of the United States is actually employed by small business. So we need to give back. So make sure that you guys are responding to the source of sought notices, reaching out, and marketing your services that way as 8A firms. Next. Thank you. So these are the different operating administrations, and here are links to all of those operating administrations and their contact information for their OSBU offices or their small business specialists, are on there as well. Make sure that you're reaching out and trying to see which one fits in your needs more or the services that you provide. And honestly, it's essential to know that they're out there, not only for the opportunities that you can provide, but maybe teaming opportunities that maybe you're adjacent to, like I mentioned before. You could team, or maybe you're an AA in your 8th or 9th year, you want to bid for something, but if it goes 8A direct award sole source, obviously, have to stay in the 8A program, even if it is an 8A sole source. If it's awarded to an 8A, it has to stay in the 8A. So you guys should be teaming with the other participants in this webinar, as well as other 8A firms, because if you are have the opportunity to be an 8A, make sure that you can try to elongate the time as long as possible. Obviously, if you're native, then you could be 8A for life, but for those of you who are not, try to extend it as long as possible by teaming with other 8A firms. There's nothing against that, and I completely um, think that this is one route that you should definitely be going with because it's essential that you try to do this as a marketing tactic even. It's going to make you propel you to be very different than those contractors around you. Next slide. So here's a layout of how the funding is um, obviously laid out. So this is from FY20, and it hasn't really changed much, but as you can see, obviously, Federal Aviation Administration has the largest, and then Federal Highway, FHWA, is next. So when we talk about FAA, when we talked about it in the previous slides, the reason we mention FAA so much is because um, there's so much opportunity with them, and although they don't follow the FAR, they did make mandates to contract with hub zone firms, 8A firms, SDBs, and things like that. So they're always trying to find new small businesses. And Alan Bresley, out of their office, the small business specialist, he is wonderful and extremely responsive to small businesses as well. But don't cop out all the other OAs just because you see the most money in FAA, right? They're all trying to find good and viable small businesses like yourselves. Next. So here's an overlook of the infrastructure bill and where the investments are going. We created this slide to just make it easier for everyone to just see where exactly it is instead of having to read through the entire bill. So roads and bridges and major projects is $110 billion. Transportation safety is $11 billion. You guys can see this obviously, but look at the other areas of investment, $121 billion. That's huge amount of money. This money is going to be distributed throughout the states. This is going to be distributed on the procurement level as well. But we need to be making sure that you guys are reaching out to us at USDOT so that we know that you're there. I can't tell you enough how many times there are programming offices that say, hey, I'd love to give this to a small business, but there's nobody answering our sources sought notices. There's nobody answering the emails where I reach out to them and say, hey, I'd love to contract with you, but, I need a response. So, make sure that you guys are creating those relationships and retaining those relationships as well. Next slide. As I mentioned, this is just an example. This is for Pennsylvania, but here are the link at the bottom, the state level procurements. So basically, how the money is going to trickle down into the states and where it's going primarily. All of those, it doesn't matter if you're not in Pennsylvania, the links are to all the state by state fact sheets are there. Make sure that you're looking into that. Make sure you're forecasting yourself to see where the money is going to be distributed and has already started to be distributed so that you're placing yourself strategically as you are trying to market to the federal government, but also state and local governments as well. Next slide. So here are a list of grants that you can actually bid on too. State or local municipalities really can go for these too. Nonprofit organizations, these are just the grant level opportunities, the larger ones that are going to be either newly awarded or revamped and expanded. These are wonderful. We just have the RAISE grant, which is the second one on there, Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity, that the due date is actually tomorrow. So those of you who are bidding for that, make sure that you guys are pushing that forward before tomorrow. But make sure that you guys are reaching out and looking at our websites to see all of the due dates for these two. Next slide. So contact us, obviously. There's a lot of different agencies that don't provide the contact information for their offices. We are not one of those. We want you reaching out. We want to hear from you. So hear from even from director scales, all the way down to myself down here as ADA and Hub Zone Advocate. We really want to be hearing from you. Here's our email addresses. If you're not ADA, if you're not Hub Zone, make sure that you reach out to someone from our office, regardless if you're interested in getting your ADA. If you're interested in doing business with the federal government as well, we can help you with that too. So I really do want you guys to, if anything, retain this one slide because it's essential that you guys are reaching out to us and we know that you're out there so that we can help you further expand and succeed in federal contracting. And with that, I think we could go into questions if there are any. Just let me know.
So one of the biggest questions we keep getting is if this presentation is going to be available to everyone on this call. Yes, it will be posted on our website shortly after this recording is complete, along with the recording of this webinar. But pertaining to the presentation, Natalie, where exactly on the website can everyone find this information, like your contact information, any additional resources, and also DOT opportunities? Where can they find that?
Yeah, so there's a different avenues, obviously, where you can find them. If you just Google OSDBU, USDOT OSDBU, you can find our contact information about USDOT, what we're doing for small business over here at OSDBU, but also links to different parts of U.S. Department of Transportation as well. But if you're looking for opportunities with U.S. Department of Transportation, the easiest way is, again, to Google. You can look it up through our Oswego office, but if you just Google procurement forecast for USDOT, you can find that there. And our procurement forecast is a little more robust than your usual procurement forecast. You can actually filter through. It's actually very similar to U.S. Department of the Treasury. So you can filter through by NAICS code. You could filter through by the different operating administration. They're all there. Also, you can find us different opportunities on SAM. As I mentioned earlier, there are some links to sources thought notices, and those sources thought notices do have the contact information for the small business specialists and for those programming offices also. Thank you, Rochelle, for putting that in the chat as well.
Great. Another question that we just received is if there's any updates on when EFAST may be awarded with the FAA.
That's actually one question that we get a lot. And we don't know, or I don't know directly, but obviously we can follow up on that. Whoever asked that question about EFAST, make sure that you're emailing me so that I could connect you with Alan Bresley, our small business specialist over at FAA. As I mentioned, he's extremely responsive. He's very good on top of his emails, and he makes it a point to, do his job correctly. And it's very few and far between that you actually find great small business specialists that are very passionate about their job. But over here at USDOT, we're very, very, very passionate about the mission and moving forward. So yeah, definitely let me know. Send me an email, and so that I could connect you with Alan Bresley from FAA.
Okay. I don't see any other questions in the chat. So if anybody has any other questions, if you can quickly put that in there. But in the meantime, Natalie, if listeners are listening in, what is like one takeaway from this presentation or what you would want them to know about DOT?
That's a great question. Honestly, a huge takeaway that I want you guys to leave with, if not anything else, is that just because you haven't been contracting with USDOT in the past doesn't mean that you can't. We're trying to push an initiative to find incoming 8As or those 8As that have never gotten a contract before, there's a government-wide push to try to help you guys to get these contracts. We're trying to push forward with going small business as much as possible, exceeding our goals. So make sure that you guys are, the takeaways really is make sure you guys are responding to sources notices, but also reaching out to us so that we know you're there. Send us your capability statement. We have a ton of them, but we need to know that you're actually there in order for us to reach out to you and say, hey, I spoke with John Smith and I know that he works with, I don't know, artificial reality, augmented reality, and that's something that we're trying to do moving forward with bridge construction. You never know. Okay, don't be discouraged. That's one big thing that I love to leave the audience with. Don't be discouraged to try to contract with us and contact us more than anything.
We did get another question regarding the hub zone opportunities and those goals.
Okay.
I know in your slide previously you said that they're at 3%, but they're wondering what are you guys doing to help increase those opportunities and the goal?
So we are one of the very few agencies that have met that goal and exceeded the goal um, over the last 10 years. So we're extremely passionate about Hub Zone. That's one of the areas that we're most passionate about. So we're trying, in order to push forward and exceed the goal, when we had FAA join us at USC Department of Transportation, we had been trying to push forward for them to have a hub zone set aside because they don't follow the FAR. They didn't have that or wasn't mandated. Now they do. So we're trying to really push forward, and we've been creating partnerships with different organizations such as the Hub Zone National Council to try to see where it is that we can go further. Um, we had a Meet the Mentor session during Connections Marketplace last month with Hub Zone National Council, and um, again, a big push for us was trying to see where the hub zones are, but how we can actually connect with you guys further. So if you guys aren't going to matchmakings or anything like that, make sure that you are, especially if you are under any of the small business certifications, the SBA certifications, and make sure you guys are responding to sources on notices. But as hub zones directly, reach out. I cannot hesitate enough. Like, do not, push the envelope as far as reaching out. We want to hear from you. We want to know that you guys are out there. It's not enough for just us to reach out to you guys, maybe using DSDS, trying to find you guys, but, make it simpler for the federal government to find you by reaching out and being that person. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. Make sure that you guys are being that person.
Well, thank you so much, Natalie, for taking the time to do this presentation with us today for our community. I do want to let everyone know that if anybody does have any questions for Natalie, you can send them directly to her, as she mentioned, or one of those local offices, or even to the National 8A, and we can get you into the right person for those questions. But it was really great to hear that DOT has increased those goals for small business and small business disadvantaged businesses, and especially that it's higher than what the government standard is. So again, thank you so much, Natalie, for being with us today. I know that we probably have like a couple other slides for the National 8A. One of them is our membership. We do have a free membership tier if you guys are not members that are on this webinar today. We also have upcoming events like our Alaska conference that's coming up. We also have our annual conference in New Orleans next year. But yeah, so if you guys just want to check out our website as well, we have additional webinars coming up for the rest of the year. And again, thank you everyone for joining. Presentations will be posted on our website along with the recording later today. So, thank you everyone.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.